तो हम लोग कहाँ आए हैं वो भी जरा बता दो।
हम लोग आए हैं बादामी।
Today we are in Badami, watching the sunset over the calm Agastya lake. But what makes this moment special is not just the sunset, but the place from where we are watching it, the ancient Bhutnath temple. For over 1300 years, this temple has stood here, witnessing the rise and fall of powerful dynasties in Badami. Join us as we explore this incredible historic place which was once the capital of rich Chalukyan Empire. Our visit to Badami was a sudden weekend plan. We took a bus from Bangalore around 11 p.m. on Friday night, which dropped us at the main Badami bus stop by 8:15 a.m. on Saturday. Badami also has a railway station, well connected to many cities including Bangalore. However, it does not have its own airport. The nearest airport is in Hubli, though not many flights land there. Getting down at Badami felt like arriving in any typical small town. There were small shops, dusty streets, and most people were using two-wheelers or autos to get around. You will hardly see any luxury cars on roads here. It didn't feel like a well-known tourist spot with neatly maintained streets. Our hotel was located just a few hundred meters from the main bus stop. Since we had arrived early, they gave us a different room to freshen up and store our luggage before we started sightseeing. I will share the contact details of the hotel in the description of this video. If you are a budget traveler looking for affordable hotels, then you can check that out. The rooms were clean, but don't expect too much from a budget hotel. Badami does not have many good stay options. There is a Karnataka government-run KSTDC Hotel Mayura approximately 12 kilometers from the main bus stop. So if you want, you can check that out as well. On day 1, we planned to visit Aihole, Patadkal and Mahakuta temple, all located a bit farther from the main Badami area. These historic sites are part of Bagalkot district in northern Karnataka. To cover all three comfortably, we hired an auto for entire day. Auto drivers usually charge between 1,000 to 1,500 for a full day sightseeing, but it's always a good idea to negotiate for a better deal. I will share the contact details of our auto driver in the video description. After freshening up, we headed for breakfast at a nearby restaurant called Pakwan. It looked decent and the food tasted average. We hardly saw any fancy restaurants in Badami. In terms of ambience, this restaurant was the most decent one we visited during our entire trip. Our first sightseeing destination today was Aihole, which is 35 kilometers away from Badami. The journey to Aihole took us around an hour. Along the way, we passed by fields of groundnuts, corn and sugarcane, which gave us a glimpse of the region's strong dependence on farming. The auto driver explained that this region has both red and black soil. Public transport on this route seemed scarce, with very few buses visible. If you plan to rely on public buses, it's a good idea to check their timings in advance at the local bus stop. Aihole appeared as a typical village along the banks of Malaprabha River, with a few shops, modest houses and vast fields. Farming seems to be the primary occupation of the locals. Our auto driver shared with us that before 1980, many of the sites here were occupied by the local people who used to live there, but they were later taken over by the government. I also learned that Aihole is rich in prehistoric sites. We arrived at Aihole Temple Complex around 11:30 am. The temple complex stood out distinctly from the rest of the village. The entry ticket price was ₹20 per person, while children under 15 could enter for free. There is also a small museum within the complex, with an additional ticket price of ₹5, again free for kid below 15. Inside the temple complex, the major highlights include the Durga temple and the Latkhan temple, along with some more. Exploring all the temples and the museum will take a little over an hour. Each temple within the complex, as well as those outside it, showcases unique architectural styles, with no two temples resembling one another. Historical research suggests that the Chalukyas used Aihole as an experimental ground, testing various temple designs and styles. The best designs were later adopted as prototypes for the grand temples in Patadkal and Badami. With more than 100 temples of Chalukyan period scattered across the village, this place is famously known as the cradle of Indian architectures. The temples here were constructed between 6th and 8th centuries. This place was once the capital of early Chalukyan dynasty before they moved their capital to Vatapi, which is now called Badami. After exploring the temples, we stopped for quick refreshments, buying some fruits and coconut water from local vendors. Here you will not see any major restaurant or eateries nearby. Next we headed towards Patadkal, a World Heritage Site which is located approximately 22 kilometers from Badami. Much like Aihole, this place also felt like a rustic village with small shops, dusty roads and fields stretching across the landscape. The temple complex here was impressively well maintained. Entry tickets were Rs 35 per person. The complex houses several remarkable temples including Mallikarjuna Temple, Virupaksha Temple, Kasi Visweswara Temple and Papanatha Temple among others. Each temple showcases magnificent architecture reflecting the artistic and cultural achievements of Chalukyan dynasty. Exploring these temples thoroughly will take more than an hour. By the time we finished exploring Patadkal, it was 3 p.m. and we were a lot hungry. Since there weren't much fancy restaurants in the area, we opted for a local eatery that served a traditional thali. The food turned out to be delicious and the warmth of the people serving us made the experience even more special. After a hearty lunch, we set out to visit Mahakuta group of temples, also known as Dakshin Kashi, which means Kashi of the South, located in Mahakuta village, about 15 kilometers from Badami. These temples were built by early Chalukya kings and hold significant religious and historical importance. The most unique feature of the Mahakuta temples is the Vishnu Puspakarini, also called Papa Vinasha Tirth. The Vishnu Puspakarini at Mahakuta is a sacred water tank fed by natural spring. It is believed that the water in this tank has healing properties and the power to wash away sins, making it a holy site for devotees. After spending some time soaking in the serenity of the sacred place, we headed back to Badami. After our experience on day 1, I have few suggestions for you. Sightseeing on day 1 will mostly conclude by 5:30 p.m. Since Badami is not a typical tourist destination with markets or activities to enjoy at night, I recommend taking your time at each site instead of rushing through. Explore the places at a slower pace and make most of your day. You can also spend a peaceful evening at the Mahakuta temple complex sitting there until sunset. So this way you will be able to make use of most of your day. Another thing we noticed was the lack of good restaurants at any of the places that we visited. However, local fruit vendors selling fresh fruits and coconut water are available outside all the sites. If possible, carry enough snacks and water with you. But be cautious of monkeys as they are abundant at all the sites. Our second day in Badami began with checking out from the hotel as it was the last day of our trip. After a quick breakfast at a nearby restaurant, we started our sightseeing. The sites today were in Badami itself, and other than the Banshankari temple that we visited, all were at a walkable distance, within 1 to 2 kilometers range. If you want, you can take an auto today, or if comfortable, you may simply walk on foot. Our first stop was Banshankari temple, a significant religious site dedicated to goddess Banshankari, believed to be a powerful deity. After a quick stop, we headed to the famous Badami caves. No trip to Badami is complete without visiting this incredible place. The entry ticket is very affordable, just Rs 20 per person. These ancient rock-cut caves highlight the amazing architectural skills of the Chalukyan dynasty. There are 4 caves in total, with the third cave being the largest. 3 of the caves are Hindu temples and the 4th is a Jain temple. We spent a good amount of time exploring the intricate carvings, statues and designs inside the caves. It was absolutely worth it. Since we had the entire day, we climbed the steps slowly and took our time to explore every detail. From the caves, you get a stunning view of Badami city. You also get to see Agastya Lake, the Bhutnath temple and the opposite side of the Badami fort. The view is truly beautiful. These caves, built in 6th century by the Chalukyas, are monolithic masterpieces. Monolithic means they are carved out of a single rock. On the day we visited, the caves were quite crowded because many school children were there on a field trip. It was nice to see kids learning about the history and heritage of this amazing monument. After exploring the caves, we went to the museum. Outside the museum, there were a few fruit vendors, and we bought some fruits and coconut water to stay hydrated. However, the area was full of monkeys, so you need to be careful with your food as they often try to grab it from your hand. The museum had an entry fee of just ₹5. It displays many artifacts and relics found during excavations in the region, giving an interesting insight into the history and culture of the Chalukya dynasty. You can spend some time here learning more about them. After visiting the museum, you can head to the nearby Badami Fort. Inside the fort, you will also find the upper and lower Shivalayas. The way to the fort is just near the museum entrance. Before lunch, we visited the upper and lower Shivalayas as well as the Badami Fort. These places were amazing with their unique designs and their beautiful canyon-like rocks around them. The big sandstone rocks, their shapes and their color were so beautiful. At first, I thought I would just climb a few steps, but the higher I went, the more I wanted to keep going. The area had many beautiful spots, perfect for taking photos. We walked slowly, which helped us avoid getting too exhausted and allowed us to enjoy the views better.
Super pose कहते हो तुम, हीरो बन जाते हीरो.
This part of the trip was one of the best because of its stunning beauty. We stopped often to take pictures and spent a lot of time exploring the place at a relaxed pace. If you do not have trouble climbing the stairs, please do not miss this place. Around 3 p.m., we took an auto and headed to Pakwan for lunch. Compared to other eateries in the area, Pakwan had decent sitting arrangements. While the food wasn't exceptional, it was satisfactory enough to fuel us for the rest of the day. After lunch, we waited for the afternoon heat to reduce before heading to Agastya Lake and Bhutnath Temple. Visiting these places in evening turned out to be a great decision. Agastya Lake is a man-made lake designed to collect rainwater flowing down from the nearby cliffs. It is named after Agastya Muni. On the banks of this lake stands the beautiful Bhutnath Temple, dedicated to Lord Shiva. This temple is one of the most famous structures in Badami and a key attraction for visitors. Built in 7th century by the Badami Chalukyas, it is a stunning example of ancient craftsmanship. As the sun set, the view of Agastya Lake from Bhutnath Temple was breathtaking. The 1300 years old temple glowed in the golden light of the setting sun. Sitting by the lake and watching the sunset was a magical moment and the highlight of our trip. After enjoying the serene evening, we returned to hotel to collect our luggage. The hotel staff was kind enough to let us freshen up before we began our journey back to Bangalore. As we drove back, we couldn't stop talking about how magical the sunset at Bhutnath Temple was. If you are planning a trip to Badami, I highly recommend ending your day at this spot. It's a perfect place to watch sunset and reflect on your trip. This marked the end of our wonderful 2-day journey in Badami. I hope this video will help you plan your Badami trip. Thank you for watching and do not forget to like and subscribe to our channel.